Vic Fontaine thinks the DS9 crew looks like a trapeze act. Quark gives Julian Bashir a warp core breach to keep him relaxed for the next 3 days. And Odo learns to play the piano, or learns to pretend to play the piano. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we're doing a review of Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 20, His Way, written by Ira Steven Behr and Hans Beimler, directed by Alan Craker. And we are extremely blessed and excited to be joined by two very, very special guests, writer, producer, showrunner, Bluebeard extraordinaire, Mr. Ira Steven Behr, and also another genius in her field as well, actress and singer, Nana Visitor.
Hey, glad to be here.
All right, let's have some fun. Before we get into anything, though, very quickly, this episode is dedicated in loving memory to Leo J. Manning from his son, who says that his father was a huge Trek fan and supporter of all things Trek throughout his life. So thank you for telling us that, Brian. How you all doing?
Not bad at all. Happy to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the moment we've been waiting for. What a buildup.
It is.
It's been a back and forth between Odo and Kira this whole time. And it's like, would you guys hurry up and just do it already? And this was the moment.
But how different it was from other shows in the 90s. There was always this, will they, won't they? They work together, but they really, and you root for them. And that whole dynamic. But my God, watching the show again last night, it was like, wait a minute. Kira and Dax have this conversation, not about the guy, but about her decisions about how she feels. What? Ira, how did that happen?
I mean, look, when I look at it, I think of, we could have had a funny scene between Dax and Worf. We could have had another scene between you and Dax. Me, I always look at what coulda, shoulda, woulda been. But what I got out of it after watching it, was, I enjoyed the living hell out of it. I got to tell you, it showed that you jump the shark and still make it back to shore. It's like be bold, it's again what I've talked about on the show before. That obviously was not for the fans. It wasn't for the actors. We knew the actors were not going to like it. We knew, God, Renee hated it. Hated it to his as long as he was on this earth, and he's probably still hating it wherever he is now.
I didn't know that. Why did he hate it so much?
Yeah, why did he hate it?
He just felt that, he should have been the loner, the sad loner, the sad clown, who never got anything, except a little sorrow, the loner. But I knew he was going back to the goo at the end of the series, and that had to mean something, and he had to be, leave something behind, and it couldn't just be freaking Quark.
It couldn't just be his job,
or his job. So we wanted to make his leaving have a kind of tragic quality. The other thing was Kira, who had been through what she had been through, with the occupation. Dax died, but she's used to people dying. Kira is we all know how tough Kira is emotionally. So at the end of the series, I wanted the only person to be unaffected by anything was Quark. Of course, Quark is eternal. The bar is eternal. So he's still going about his business, basically. Yes, he's gonna, whatever. But he was the only one who had to stay, immovable. He's just there, part of the station. But Kira needed to have something, okay, goodbye, Miles. Yeah, my heart is broken. And yes, Sisko is off with the prophet, but something more, something that would really cut through, that wall of dealing with things that she's able to deal with. And so it just seemed like bringing them together finally, and then knowing that there was an expiration date on that relationship just gave another level to the show, And also it's just fate, baby. It's fate, right? It's fate, baby. It's fate. Because originally, as some of you might know, it was originally supposed to be part of season 4 and have nothing to do with Kira and Odo. We were going to bring Frank Sinatra Jr. on to play a hologram called Frank Sinatra Jr. And the joke was in the oh shit, I have a low battery. Why is it? Hold on.
I'm really interested in hearing the second half of that, because I was wondering who in that room is the giant, Sinatra fan or the 60s Vegas fan, because Vic Fontaine said all of the lingo, like everything you could every single line had that lingo. So there must have been at least one or two or all of
it. Yeah, that was me. And Hans to an extent, and Ron was picking it up as he went along and wanted to, but originally it was supposed to be in season 4. It was supposed to be Junior. And the joke, which is what screwed everything up, was in the 24th century, Frank Sinatra Jr. is more popular than his dad. And I think Senior was still alive at that time, even though barely hanging on. And so that might have not been the smartest move we made, but it was never supposed to be an episode. I never thought of Vic as being someone who could sustain an episode. Originally, he was going to be a scene or two in a couple of episodes. He would be, I called him, that's who I thought of. It's like Quarks was a place to relax, but not really, because you didn't want the Starfleet people getting too comfortable in Quark, because we know that Quark isn't trustworthy in certain ways. So I wanted a place where they could hang. And so that's how Vic was born. But Vic was supposed to just be like a flavor. And then Junior only, I talked to Junior, and it all started because Laura and I had seen Junior a couple of times live, and he's so freaking weird and funny that we thought, I got to do something with this guy. He is so bizarre. I mean, he's putting chapstick on in the middle of his set, and just weird non sequiturs. He was an interesting dude. Jimmy knew him very well, and he was an interesting guy. Anyway, so I get on the phone with Frank, and he goes, he was a Star Trek fan, which I had heard. All he wanted to do was play an alien. He goes, I can't play myself. I realize now, I'm sure he didn't want to do a thing where he's more popular than his dad. But I want to play an alien. I said, I could get 1 million goddamn actors to play an alien. You can only get one person to play Frank Sinatra Jr. So anyway, it didn't happen. And so we thought, okay, it's not going to happen. Then in season 5, we thought we'd try it again. And we put the character in an episode that Renee Haines was writing. And that's when he became Vic Fontaine. And we got in touch with Steve Lawrence, because Steve Lawrence had been an actor, Steve and Edie, but he had actually been a Broadway actor. He did What Makes Sammy Run on Broadway. Anyway, they were touring, so there was no Steve Lawrence, and I couldn't think of anyone else at the time, so that barely made it through a first draft, and then we knocked that out and said, forget it, it's never going to happen. And then I remember driving in my car where I have so many of my epiphanies. It was the 6th season, getting deep into the 6th season. I said, man, this show's going to end. Finally hit me, the show's going to end in another season. And boy, oh boy, if there's anything we want to do besides the Dominion War, you know, there has to be something. It has to happen now, you know, or we're never going to do it. I remember being in the car and going, God damn it, we're going to do Vic Fontaine, but we're not going to do him for a scene. You know, we're going to do a whole goddamn episode about it. And we're going to get, at the same time, we're going to get Kira and Odo. That's how Kira and Odo are going to get together. So that those two separate ideas just kind of came together. It became, you know, an incredibly frustrating time trying to find someone to play the part of Vic Fontaine. And I knew that, you know, the actors weren't going to necessarily be thrilled about it. I knew the fans weren't going to understand what the hell we were trying to do. And basically, I really just don't care, because you can't care. You have to do what you think is best for the show and interesting for the show. If you worry too much, we would never have done the Dominion. We wouldn't have done 3/4 of the things we wound up doing if we were worried about what the fans were going to say. You know, the fans want Kirk and Spock, you know, still, you know, give us a clone of that.
Tough. They're going to get Far Beyond the Stars and The Visitor.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how it all came down. That was.
No, how did you feel about the relationship, you and your character and Odo?
Well, originally I didn't want it because it was such a 90s trope, you know, get these two people together and then there's a happily ever after. The great thing about what the writers did is there was no happily ever after for us. And there was life for my character because, you know, think about it, in stories, usually the woman gets the man and then it's over. Until she's an old crone and then she's trying to kill some young girl. Yeah. That's usually what happens. And it didn't happen that way. There was no happily ever after. And yet my character had a life with you on the station. And I was mentoring a young man. So that was great. I didn't know that it was going to turn out that way at the time. So I was like, oh no, don't make it romantic. Can't friends just be friends? I had that feeling about it. But that said, I enjoyed filming that to the nth degree. Being able to sing, although that scared the hell out of me at the time. I loved doing that. I loved playing the romantic scenes with Renee. And I loved watching it last night. It was so impressive on so many levels. And just what you said, it's like, hey, I don't even notice that we're jumping the shark here. It's such an engaging story. And there don't seem to be any issues in my head about what? It was beautifully done. And just one other thing I want to mention that was so impressive to me is, you know, you have this fantasy Kira and you expect the character to go, okay, you know, the Odo is going to completely take advantage of this in some kind of, you know, but it wasn't for the male gaze at all. It was so much more vulnerable and truthful and beautiful in that. He goes, I can't, you're not her, so I can't. That touched me. That impressed me. In the 90s?
Yeah.
I remember you wanted to do Fever, right? We had a different song or something, but you
wear your hat, that's what you wanted me to sing.
Yeah. Right.
But I so wanted Kira, and I did associate Lola with Kira. I wanted her to have passions and, you know, some grit to it too, and not just be, oh, this is romantic. I wanted it to be hot.
Yeah, and it was absolutely.
Was that?
It was like I had not seen that episode for 24, whatever it is, years. So it was like, wow, this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just talking about myself. I don't, like I said, the audience they'll think whatever they want, but just sitting there and watching it, I was just enjoying it from the jump, really, and things that I had forgotten, like the that he created the holographic Kira at first. Plot details get fuzzy after a while; you forget them. So it's fun to go back. But how good, and again, how far Kira had come. I mean, you put on a first season episode before Duet of Kira, and then put that episode on, and you see a character journey that is just absolutely astounding. Kind of like look, everything in a TV show, especially a serialized show, is heightened, right? It's heightened. Most people live lives of quiet desperation. Every day is the same. How many times have we said, what day is it today? Oh yeah, it's same as the other day, blah, blah, blah. But when you're doing drama, you have to have events. Things have to happen to people for the most part, so it's all a little heightened. There's the Dominion War, and there's the Romulans, and there's, it's in real life, everyone would have a nervous breakdown if their lives were that jam-packed and fun-filled. If they had an adventure a week, good grief.
Right.
How am I going to sleep at night? PTSD all the time. But even you can do that without making it silly. And I think that's what a character like Kira showed, that what happened to her on the show, the relationship she formed on the show, the events that happened, enriched the life of a woman who, remember, her upbringing was, it was not the most cosmopolitan of upbringings, right? She grew up in
the occupation,
in a bad scene. So it's not like she grew up hanging out, with a bunch of friends and learning social interaction and all that stuff, and prom night and Sweet 16 and whatever the hell.
Right, she had a gun already.
Yeah.
Right.
So the station gave her all that. The station gave her friends. The station showed her that life isn't black and white. It's not. When all you care about is eating and not being killed, life is very simple. Kill your enemy. And keep yourself and your friends alive. It's very simple. But that had passed, and now she had to build a kind of life. And we witnessed her build a life. And I thought that was kind of cool and kind of culminating in how she dealt with the events of this silly little episode. But there was a continuity in Kira, even in this episode, that I thought was really good.
Real quick, I'd like to point something out. You guys have mentioned multiple times already that you're not entirely sure how the fans responded to this or how they felt about it. But I do want to point out that our associate producer, Dr. Marie Segal, who lives out in Manhattan, says she has purchased one autograph in her entire life. And this is it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the moment.
Oh, no. And I haven't signed it. I have to sign it for her. You have to get that to me so I can sign it.
I think she would jump at that. The other quick thing is, Nana, I did actually want to ask you, and you kind of already halfway answered it, whether the writers had chosen that song for you or whether you had chosen it. How did that conversation go about? Did you just say, nope, I want to do Fever?
Hallway.
And
I remember Ira came down, he was there, and he said, listen, we're thinking of a song, this one. And I was like, it was pretty immediate that I don't think that I fought singing so much. It was just that I really wanted, I always wanted to show when I could that Kira had appetites, you know, and when she ate, she was hungry, and it may not be pretty when she ate because she had to get it down, because when you grow up like that, that's the way it is. And I wanted it to be sexual, particularly with Odo, because it's not it's not what we're used to. You know, I got Shakar, you know, and all these typical hunky guys, broad shoulders, tall, and I didn't want that to be what got her. And I wanted there to be heat between her and a changeling, someone who just, you know, it was a random shape.
Right. And also you maintain your own identity. You don't become essentially assimilated by a relationship. You're still Major Kira. You've got shit to do. And, you know, you're not going to be bothered by or sidetracked in this emotional involvement with somebody.
Exactly. That's, you know, that was the happily ever after that didn't happen. That was so great.
We failed you so badly. I mean, that was a joke, even as, you know, during the time, not looking back, but even at the time, I mean, no matter who we threw at you, those relationships just did not work. You know, as you're saying, the typical, whether he was like the spiritual Belial or the more swashbuckling Shakar, it's like none of those guys, you know, measured up to Kira. We and believe me, we knew it, and we would look at dailies and go, damn it, we just, you know, it's just, there has to be someone out there, you know, who is worthy of Kira Nerys. And then we realized it was right under our Pinocchio nose that, you know, there's this moon truck kind of, you know, gelatinous mass who you know, was worthy of that relationship, because he had the sensitivity, the understanding, you know, but boy, there were some times during dailies on some other shows where we were going, what the hell are we doing here? It just seemed like a slam dunk. Nope.
The fans thought that too. I know I caught myself and others saying she could do better. No matter how great of an introduction that guy would get. And we'd be like, I know I'm supposed to like this guy, but come on, she can do better.
She can do better.
Yeah.
We were on.
I mean, there was nobody worthy of Kira, really, except for Odo, who has the patience and understanding and that sensitivity that you just described. I thought, Nana, you really highlighted the fact that when Odo was with the hologram version of Kira, he didn't like it because it was too cooperative. It was too easy for him. He wanted the resistance. He wanted this talk back. He wanted to hear, you know, things that felt more natural as opposed to just somebody who just agreed with everything he said. Yeah. And that is the attractive quality about somebody like Odo who wouldn't take anybody else. There is no substitute for the person he loves, which is you.
Yeah, that really hit me so hard that it wasn't the body, it wasn't the fantasy. He wanted the real essence of this sentient being. I never know what to say because she's not human. This humanoid, I guess. You know, and that is that's the way I in my own life want to be seen, you know. And so it's so wonderful to see it on the screen. Doesn't always happen.
So we're going to jump to a very quick break here, everybody. And then when we get back, we're going to dive even deeper into this legendary episode that the writers didn't really know how people were going to take it, but it turns out people took it very, very well. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, and two people at the absolute heights of quality talent, Nana Visitor and Ira Stephen Behr. Very quickly, here are the trivioids that may or may not have made the cutting room floor. Vic Fontaine knows he's a hologram. Vic thinks the Deep Space Nine crew looks like a trapeze act. Kira is going to Bajor to visit Shakar, but she doesn't want us to talk about it. Love, life, women. What are three things Julian Bashir knows nothing about? Quark gives Bashir a warp core breach to keep him relaxed for the next 3 days. Odo learns to play the piano, or learns to pretend to play the piano, and it took Vic Fontaine an hour to get rid of Holo Kira's Russian accent. It's fun.
You know, when I'm watching these episodes, Ira, I find myself writing down your lines, and I just write them down over. Here, just because you miss your wife doesn't mean you've gone blind. It's all right to look as long as you don't touch. And I love this stuff, and I wonder, because you gave us an insight into the writing room and how you guys go back and forth and get onto the chalkboard or whatnot, the dry erase board, but. When you guys are doing these lines, do you vocalize them out loud? Do you say them to each other? I really wondered that.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely, and that's where the fun when I was, I just went out, not to bring everyone down, but I finally went out to see the tablet that we laid down for Peter Allen Fields. I designed a tablet for him because there was no one else to do it. So I went out to finally visit Pete, and who's over in Mount Sinai Cemetery next to Forest Lawn in the Valley. If anyone wants to visit Pete Fields, I'm sure he'd like the company. I remembered while I was standing there when we were doing duet, when I was helping on the rewrite, and I was just like streaming all this dialogue that Harris Yulin would say. I had blood on my hands, but I was clean. And Pete and I were hysterically laughing. That's what I remember. We were laughing our asses off because I was just running around literally his office, trying to just stream of consciousness, coming up with the most outrageous fascist things I could think of to say, and we were howling with laughter, and there was just a remembrance I had last week while I was over there seeing him, and with his way, it was just Hansi and I were just throwing lines back and forth, and having a high old time. I mean, a chance to, I believe we both watched Ocean's 11. I think I told him to rewatch the original Ocean's 11, and just we decided we were going to go for it, and we kept thinking of Yoda. What we did not want, which is what Jimmy did so well, and I think we have to take a second for Jimmy Darren. What he did so well was totally avoid any sense of sleazy, nightclub, misogynistic, sexist. Jimmy, he was able to give all the kind of, like you were saying, Cirroc, the Pally and the Clyde and the Harvey and all that stuff. Yeah. But you could tell he's there to be of service. He's there to make people happy, not just Odo and Kira was someone who he was just going to manipulate. He both to be happy. And I just think Jimmy, from the time he came in and did not audition, whatever you want to call what he did, he had that thing, and he has it today. He's seen a lot. He knows where a lot of bodies are buried. He's seen a lot of bad behavior in his time, but you never know it, hanging with it.
Yeah. I think James Darren is class personified.
Yeah.
And he was like you say, he wasn't creepy or pervy in his delivery and his kind of trying to bridge everybody together. And there was even a moment where he took a small sentiment for himself when he told Odo, just give me 5 minutes before you shut the program down. You know, I feel like singing. And I just like, where do you get a computer? You know, where do you
with a heart?
That a light bulb with, you know, who wants some time to himself. And he just loves singing so much. And I felt that was such a great ad. I'm glad you threw that line in there because it just made him seem so much personable. And I love the way he comes up to them and sets them up in this kind of grand lie. You know, I worked out the program, and then he tells you something else. You know, Odo wants to see you. I love the way he's the orchestrator of trying to bring you guys together. But Nana, I wanted to say the scene in which you were with Odo in that moment where it's the real you, and you're wearing that beautiful red dress, and the two of you are just sitting across the table. And the look that you had, I just kept writing. I was like, what a look. You weren't even saying anything, just the look. And it was just this glowing, lovely, you know, radiant energy that I felt coming through the screen. I said, wow, she is killing this moment by making it just that much more special, and how you were listening and receiving and just taking in all of it. I thought the expression on your face captured the specialness of this moment.
Can I just add to that before you respond, Nana, because I wanted to say something very close to that. When I first watched this, whatever it was, 20 years ago, and I was convinced, Nana, that the actress, Nana Visitor, was a hard ass because of how good her acting was as Major Kira. And then I watched this episode and I was like, oh my God, she is the sweetest lady in the world. And I never knew it. And it was truly one of the biggest revelations I've ever had in Star Trek. And I would tell people, I was like, I am convinced that she is a radiant, wonderful human being, because when you see that smile, it's so real and so genuine that it just turned my perception of you upside down. And I was like, I've been wrong she was acting before. This is the real her. But anyway, it really shines through in that episode.
I actually love that. I love hearing that. And first of all, thank you both. But I think what's interesting about what you said is that we can look at all people like that. And we, you know, as humans, we like to see patterns and match them and know that we're going to, yes, that's who that is. Because I've seen this kind of person before, which becomes unconscious bias so quickly. But when we go, you know what? Why was she a hard ass? It could have been her life. And what else is in there? If, you know, I think that I love that you got that message from my character, because maybe that's something that we can extrapolate to everybody.
Totally.
And I say this all the time. Sorry, Ira, but I just wanted to reemphasize, no character I've ever seen on television is able to hit the dynamic range of emotions, of feelings as Major Kira is, as you are, Nana, playing Kira. You completely blow me away from the fierceness that you bring. You know, Ryan said a hard ass, but, you know, just toughness. But then the ability to switch on this very sensual, very sensitive, very just loving person. The dynamic the range is just completely off the scale. And I just want to say, again, I've never seen a character like Kira on television before and maybe even after. So it's you stand alone in this kind of range that you're bringing to the screen.
But the character allowed me to do that. You know, and she had a tragic, horrible past and carried it with her. And there was enough trust to let me be not liked for a while, you know, instead of firing me and going, okay, that doesn't work. Let's get a babe in here because that's what everyone wants. That was a lot of trust on, you know, you and everybody else, Ira. So I got to do that. But again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I can't tell you what that means. It's a big deal to hear those words.
I do think it's funny that the three of us all responded, because I remember, again, it's not something I remembered in the episode, but that look you gave Odo while you were dancing, I will say that every human being on this planet should have someone look at them like you looked at him, because that is, it was incredibly impressive. And at that moment, you know, I totally gave myself up to the show, which I knew better than to do, you know, but for that moment I was in it, and I was in that love story, and I was saying, this is so beautiful. And these, you know, it was very impressive. And it's amazing that Cirroc and Ryan both had, you know, that same moment. That's when you know the magic works, you know. It's good.
Oh yeah, and then you know the music complements it as well. You know, James Darren comes in with the "I've Got You Under My Skin," and right at the moment when it's all kind of coming together in this great, you know, cacophony of feelings and emotions, and boom, he comes in with the soundtrack, and it just makes it just so lovely. It is. I did get lost in this moment.
And we stopped before we begin. It was wonderful. It was really beautifully done, that whole scene.
Was there any challenge to get some of this music cleared? Because I know you.
You know, I was thinking the same thing, Cirroc.
Yeah.
Because I chose all those songs, you know. You know, Jimmy always talks about how the only time I didn't choose a song for him was
Ride with me.
was in the episode with Aaron, with Nog.
Wait, no.
Ron wanted a song. He said, can I have him sing this? And I said, yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, I don't have to choose all the songs. It's just, I want to make sure, you know, and on occasion, Jimmy would say, you know, that's not in my wheelhouse, or I don't think that's a song that I do well. And then we change it. But that was later on. For the first episode where everything was just kind of rocking and rolling, you know, Come Fly With Me was my favorite upbeat Sinatra song. You know, that's a song I just wanted to hear him sing. I don't know how the hell we got all of those cleared.
I was wondering that. I'm like, this is a lot of music to clear.
Yeah,
a lot. It was a musical. It was a musical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was very, very pleased by it. I also want to give a small highlight to the scene in which Odo and Sisko are singing together. It was they're humming it together. Yes. Not really full singing, but I just love that moment. I can't put my finger on why I love it so much, but I love it because it was Sisko kind of realizing, hey, you know, you're singing, you know, like.
It was the first moment of its kind between Odo and Sisko, I believe.
That's what I felt.
Yeah, because it starts at the beginning, Sisko is dismissive and looks like, you know, he's just like he wants to get this over with. It's all business. And then the second that he realizes Odo's singing, Sisko changes completely. Mm-hmm. You know, he suddenly it's like, oh, okay, I can relate to you now as a humanoid, even though he's a you know, whatever. But and it was great. And then the fact that Odo, his self-consciousness does not stop him. You know, he doesn't shut down. He keeps going, which shows how much he loves Kira and how much he wants this to work and how much he's trying to get to that place where he can win.
Yes. Very good, very special moment, I thought. And also, I thought Armin gave a great performance in this as well. I don't want to go without giving him his kudos. When he has the scene with Odo And he tells him, "You're not the most lovable person in the galaxy." And now this is where I imagine you were kind of going out and articulating these lines and saying them out loud to each other. But, not even the sector, not even on the station, not even in this room. And I love that moment as well.
Well, let me give you, now I'm going to tell you something. Here's an insight. There is a famous story that I had heard where, Neil Simon, the playwright, the who wrote The Odd Couple and a million other plays, biggest playwright on Broadway for a while. He had a brother, Danny Simon, who was also, believe it or not, a comedy writer and worked on a lot of variety shows, big shows. But he was one of the guys in the room, even if he ran the room. And one day, supposedly, he was sitting with some friends and he goes, I'm probably the funniest writer, in the country. And there was a long pause. And someone said, "Danny, you're not even the funniest writer in your family." So that always stuck with me. So it became that. That's where I got that from.
That's beautiful. Oh, because that felt real. It felt like it's something that has been spoken before amongst you guys. So I love that that back and forth. And Vic also, he's the perfect guy to tell somebody how cool they are or not, right? Because he starts off, he's like, "Yeah, right. you're cold as an icicle." He says, you're cool is one thing, but you're frozen solid. I love his lines in this, and the other one where Odo's like, "Well, the Shakar, he's somebody's spiritual leader," and Vic's line was, "I don't care if he's JFK."
Yes.
Another moment in which I find myself writing your lines down, and I love the writing, so clever. For you to just kind of, and this is the first time we see Vic Fontaine, right? This is the beginning of Vic Fontaine, so. Right? Yeah.
Can I just point out a few more lines very quickly while we're on this, because there were so many great lines, some comedic and some just sweet. That I wrote down a bunch of them that were so great. Obviously, the humor in "You know what a square is, right?" O'Brien says, "One side of a cube." Vic says, "I guess that answers my question."
Yes.
When Quark says to Odo, "Can I leave now?" Odo says, "Please do." That's another great one. Odo says to Vic, "What does fun have to do with Major Kira?" And Vic says, "I'll pretend I didn't hear that." Again, fantastic. Yes. And the lady,
but the best moment though, Ryan, the best lines, and this was the climax of the episode, was Kira and Odo at the promenade, right? When she says, "Hey, we'll talk about it at dinner," and I love the way, like, she just throws dinner on him like that. You just like, "All right, that's it. We're gonna do it like this," and he says, "Well, I suppose then we're gonna have. What are we gonna do after that?"
Yeah.
And then he just finally just gets to, "Well, then why don't we just kiss?" And that was like, I've been waiting for those lines. I was waiting for that scene. We all have been, since we found out that Kira and Odo had that kind of thing for each other, or Odo has that thing for Kira. We've been waiting for it to kind of build up to the moment where you're finally like, "All right, let's do something about this. Let's get it over with." And that was the great climate, the back and forth between them, where it was almost like they were arguing about, are you going to do it or not? Pull the trigger already. And I love that moment, Ira. And Nana, I thought it was excellent.
That was the beginning, right? Nana, you guys shot that early on, the kiss on the promenade.
All I remember about shooting that was I was so nervous. I was so wanting this to work and not sure how it should. But I remember being very grumpy, and Renee was too, but he usually was. And we were both just so agitated. And I think it was difficult in a way, since we were such good friends, to after so many years. It's one thing if you start a show and it's like, okay, we're romantic partners and it's just like, but to have been good friends for so many years and then have a kiss, it's a little unnerving. It was weird. It was, what is this? And I know there was so much rubber involved, but even so, it was, the energy towards each other there was an intensity. That's what I remember.
I was so pissed off that they put it at the head of the schedule. It was like, what the hell? And I guess it had something to do with putting together Vic's set. There was a new set, and I guess it wasn't ready. And it's like, so we're going to have the kiss, the culmination of this new relationship or the start of the relationship or whatever it is. And the actors haven't even had the time to play all this stuff that they needed to play to get there. It was just like such typical show business BS. And it was like, production, sorry, that's the way it has to be. But I thought
maybe that's why we were so, we didn't know what to do with it because we hadn't lived the story yet.
You hadn't done the story yet. Yeah. But you guys, I have to tell you did great. You did. The only thing I remember was, and this is a Daly's memory, it was like Quark, Armin played it we wanted a bigger reaction from Quark and he didn't give it to us. Also, I guess because the episode hadn't, so he was supposed to be the end of the three reactions of Dax, Morn, and then Quark, because Quark had, would have been, we thought was going to be the funniest because of his kind of relationship between you and him and him and Odo, but it didn't work. We had to twist and start with him. These things come back to you, after a while. You hadn't thought about them for so long, but yeah, we had to change, and then we ended up on Terry.
I loved Terry's reaction. Yes. And afterwards, I was like, why was that so important to me? Why do I feel like her seeing it made it more for me? And there was something about her going, it was very layered. It was like, I saw this coming. I'm surprised by it. But of course, there was a lot going on in the way she looked at us.
Yeah, she gave it the thumbs up. She was the one who gave it the thumbs up.
That's right.
And put it on the lip of the doorway, which for Morn was a big, acting moment. He got to lift up a leg and put it down instead of just I remember going, wow, Morn is lifting his leg. He can lift his leg. I hadn't thought about that.
There was a moment where Siddig comes in to Quark's and he passes Morn, and it's like Morn isn't even there. He doesn't go, hey, hi, or anything. And it's like the guy who's always there at the bar, and he just burns him. It's like, not giving you anything.
The thing I want to say about Sid, because I thought this was really smart. I don't know if it was in the script. It might have been. But the fact that he's been hanging out with Vic and he's still terrible at it, he hasn't learned anything. When he's trying to say, okay, pal, hey, he sounds like such a dork, and it was such a funny thing. Every time Bashir opens his mouth in the episode, I winced. It's like, oh man, you need to study harder, my friend. Or
But it's such an American thing, this, and first of all, even Americans doing what you said is so true. Vegas can turn sleazy and creepy so fast, but he had the real essence, the real cool, what we all wanted all of them to really be like. But it's so not an English thing. It would be really hard for an Englishman to say Pally. And, because that's from the street. That's from, they were in Chicago. They were tough guys. And then they went to Vegas. You know what I mean? You got to have that background. You can't, public school in England isn't going to give you, it'll give you another country, but not that one.
I wish Sid was here to defend himself.
No, the other moment that I really liked that felt real to me was Quark and Odo, the scene where he says to him, "Hey man, how long has it been since she broke up? It's been a year. Mm-hmm. You've had plenty of times. He said you had plenty of time to arrange a merger." And yes. I love the way he put everything into this, the business terms. He said, but there were no negotiations. You didn't make an offer. And I'm like, he's not buying a house, But I love the language that you chose to use there, because that is Quark's kind of, MO.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then.
They're not going to give you any.
They're like, no
question there. It was just a statement. No question. It was just a statement.
Yeah, there was.
There's too much to love about this episode. Even the light bulb, just the whole thing, the light bulb concept. Yes. You're talking to a light bulb. What a great concept. And it just makes it so. It's just like, oh wow. Because we look at somebody like that as an inanimate thing, without feelings, without emotion, without even having perspective. And Vic gives us the opposite of that. He's like, hey, I know, not bad for a light bulb, right? And even making fun of himself, that kind of humor, I thought was a great addition to a hologram. I don't think I've seen that level of intricacy in a hologram before. And was there any precedence for that in the past, Ira? The hologram character?
I'm hardly one to ask.
Yes. Dr. Moriarty in Next Generation, he was, to my knowledge, the first to be kind of sentient and be aware of what he was in the Next Generation. By the way, Cirroc, remember how we were talking about, I was saying possibly the funniest line in Star Trek ever was Worf saying, "I am not a merry man." And that was written also by Mr. Ira Steven Behr. I had forgotten about that. Just when we're talking about Next Generation, there are a few episodes that Ira did that are very impressive, including one of my favorite Guinan moments were in Yesterday's Enterprise, also written by Ira.
Well, and a bunch of other people. That episode was
yeah.
I can't use the term that we used to use to writing that episode, when a bunch of people got together to write an episode. That's a canceled term. But yes,
okay.
that was a lot of people jumping in on that one. Yesterday's Enterprise. Yes, I am not a merry man became a greeting card that pissed me off, because I got no money for that. They
was brilliant though.
Greeting card. I am not a merry man, with a picture of Michael in costume on the front of it. It was like, what the hell, man?
Grumpy Worf.
Paramount. They keep the money.
Now, Nana, had you done musicals before this moment? This is before Chicago, but had you already done musicals?
Yep, I had done Broadway musicals. That was my bread and butter in between acting jobs, and I'd done the lead in 42nd Street, and so singing. But I was the kind of singer that was like, yeah, I'll audition for this, but I'm really a dancer. But when I went to dance audition, it was like, yeah, I'll do this, but I'm really an actor. Anything to, go, this isn't really what I do. I kept moving it around, but I never felt comfortable with my singing voice. And it was like, oh, no, okay, all right, so I'll do this. I wasn't anxious to, and I hadn't sung for years. So, but, you get over yourself. That's ego. And you show up and do what you can.
Your singing voice was phenomenal.
We never had the slightest bit of doubt that she would kill it, without a doubt. I think that's a very cute question, Cirroc. Basically saying, "Do you ever do that before? Didn't you do Fever?" And you're wondering, no, she just did that off the
she
top
fell
of her
on
head.
it.
She never sang in front of people. She never. Are you kidding me? She was like, it was like a musical. She killed that song. I mean,
she killed it.
As soon as she said that that's the song she wanted to sing. I mean, it was Hans and I thought, well, that's a no. We should have come up with that. That we came up with that one. But yeah, she'd been around the microphone before. for sure.
Oh, it was beautiful, beautiful performance. And I love Odo's awkwardness about playing the piano in the beginning, just kind of like
Loved it.
The piano's playing itself. What do you want me to do over here?
You really see his talent when it's so beautifully done. His going, I don't know how to do this. What am I supposed to do? To gradually, this arc to a huge flare and getting it, it was that was the kind of thing Renee did so well. And that was ultimate stage acting, as to just physicalize this whole arc that he did.
Mm-hmm. I noticed the subtlety in his acting there. His hands, when he's playing Odo, not knowing what to do with his hands, they remained stiff and out, which is basically the opposite that you would need to play the piano. And I was like zooming in on his hands, and I was like, this guy either is brilliant at pretending like he doesn't know how to play the piano, or has never seen a piano in his life for real. And I don't know which one it is, but I thought he played that beautifully.
Yeah.
And I noticed also, like you said, the gradual escalation of his kind of getting it. I could see that too. I was actually watching for that. And you would see him kind of little by little, like, okay. And then towards the end, him kind of rolling off the piano as the finale. Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's a subtle touch that really, he sold it to me, that he was kind of awkward and then said, oh, okay, I can get the hang of this. Along with the encouragement.
I couldn't figure out. You know what I couldn't figure out? When I come up I'm singing the song and I come up and I'm somehow right next to him. The next moment I am on top of the piano. How did I do that? I don't know the mechanics of how I got on the piano moving backwards. No idea. I can't remember.
No.
Well, that's on that image, we've come to the end of this. Boy, this has been an extreme treat. We do want to give a very special thanks first to Carmen, aka Skillet, TJ, Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan. There it is. Yvette Blackmon, Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy, Eve England out in Wales, Dr. Marie Segal, Titus Mohler, Tim Baum, Darlena Marie, John Mann, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Joe Balsarotti, Tierney C. Dieckmann, Ryan Galloway, Christopher Collins, Erika Stroem, Amy Renee Haines, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner. Nana and Ira, when we are done reviewing Deep Space Nine and the book is closed, this will be one of the times that is seeped into my memory forever. This has been a real delight. We've been looking forward to it for so long. And it's a very special time, especially because the end of the show is near. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Huge pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. Wonderful. Don't want it to end, but it has to. All right, everybody.
And let's give our love, a final love and shout out to Hans Beimler, who's not able to join us, but we're still behind him with our thoughts and prayers and our love.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, everybody, stick around for the free-for-all. And until next time, always remember the 7th rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Mr. Ira Steven Behr has decided to stick around and have a party with us. Thank you so much for staying here, Ira.
My pleasure, baby.
Here it comes. We've got Melissa Longo, of course, with a really cool background. We have Dr. Mohamed Noor, Eve England staying up late out in Wales with her Ferengi eyes shirt. We have Sue Gruner in engineering. On a post over here as well, we have Tierney C. Dieckmann with lots of stuff in her background. We have Tim Baum, Grandpa One, not wearing a Liverpool shirt. We're all very disappointed about that. We have Guldu Scott, aka Skull Scott.
Oh man,
that is a Cirroc Lofton creation.
Oh man,
We have Anne-Marie Segal, that is a doctor, by the way, in Manhattan. Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy. TJ, Jackson-Bey in Missouri. And Ryan Galloway, where are you from?
I'm from just outside Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Hey, we got a Canadian.
Ooh.
Yep, Canadian in-house.
It's gonna get wild now, boy.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. So I feel like we have to start with Homer today because look at this. Look at this.
He doesn't
Very
look
nice.
Claude.
Where does the picture end and Homer begin?
Very nice. Homer, do you have any thoughts on this episode or questions for Ira? Cool shirt that Ira's wearing. Is that, by the way, is that from the movie Coco, Ira?
Not that I know of, but it could be. I just thought it was Day of the Dead, but what do I know?
What do you got for us, Homer?
I got that. This again, it had been so long since I had watched it that I was surprised about parts of it. Like I didn't realize that Vic was able to go through the comms and stuff like that. And I was like, whoa. And I didn't realize that he was going to be busting in on Kira's meditation session or any of that stuff. But my question, it's more like James Darren and sort of, and you've probably had this question before, but where does James Darren end and Vic Fontaine begin?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the easiest answer is, and all the time I spent with Jimmy over the years, he's never once called me Pally. He doesn't tell you that people are Clydes or that's a horrible or anything. So all of that is Vic Fontaine. I think Vic has Jimmy is without having to work at it. Jimmy is just Jimmy. The thing that the most telling moment, the two things that really revealed to me who Jimmy is. One of them was we went out to dinner with him and Evie, his wife, one night, and after the dinner, we went around the corner to get the car from the lot, right? And there were three women standing in the street, very young, in their early 20s. And, I walked by, my wife walked by, Evie walked by, Jimmy was hanging because he was still talking to the owner of the restaurant. So he came behind us. And next thing I know, I'm looking, I turn around and Jimmy is talking to these three women who have stopped him and they're chatting away. And we're thinking, oh, that's kind of cute. Maybe they're fans, though they're pretty young to be fans. And then he just keeps talking to them and they're laughing and he's talking to them. And I look over at Effie and she goes, this is my whole goddamn life. Life, 16 years of this. He just can't, he's just who he is. He's going to charm the hell out of them. And, he's going to make them happy as best he can. And it was like, Jimmy, let's go. Come on. We got to go. And it was like, what? And it's just, that's who he is. He's a charming guy. The second thing was,
we lost
we
him.
were in the guest house, Jimmy and I.
Oh.
Sorry, Ira, we lost you for a second. Can you start that again?
Yeah. The first time I was over at Jimmy's house, Jimmy and I were in his guest house where he has a lot of his memorabilia, and my wife and his wife were in the main house, and so we were hanging out there for a while, and then we came in for dinner, and I had this smile on my face because, for one thing, I never went to Jimmy's house where I didn't come out totally, completely, and utterly inebriated, because he was pouring drink after drink after drink. I'm telling you, I mean, so that I was incapable of driving. My wife had to drive home every single time. But I must have had this smile on my face because Jimmy was just being Jimmy, and he was telling me stories, and it was great. And as I'm passing Evie, she goes, "You want to know what it's like to really know what it's like to be with Jimmy Darren? Go shop for jeans with him." I guess he is mental about his clothes and how they fit him, you know. So there's that aspect of Jimmy that I don't think is necessarily Vic Fontaine.
Wow. That doesn't sound like Vic Fontaine, no.
Nope. Just program.
But you know, the fact is he did grow up, you know, he was so young. You know, he was so young when he came, you know, and Jimmy was an actor before he was a singer, but he came out here like when he was 18, and he was hanging out with Sinatra and all those people in Vegas, you know, when he was 20. So, you know, he had a pair of shoes that Dean Martin gave him that he wore when he played in His Way, you know, a pair of shoes to go with a tuxedo. He gave me a deck of cards from the Sands Hotel that Sinatra had given him. So he just, you know, he was constantly around these things. He has a million stories, but, you know, he comes from this very, very stable, you know, South Philly family. And so he never became, you know, he married Evie. He had been married once before when he was a kid. But I mean, when he married Evie, he was like 23 years old or something, 24 maybe. And they've been married ever since. So he's much more of a family guy, you know, than a Vic Fontaine would have been. So Jimmy's there. He knows the stuff. He lived the stuff. But he's, like I said, he never called me Pally, not even once.
You had a lot of lingo.
So sad.
Melissa, nice Chat Pack shirt, by the way. Where'd you get that?
I made it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Walking art made by Melissa.com. You can get yours as well. Melissa, any thoughts on this episode?
It's too many to say to have time. I love this episode for many reasons. Just the first minute and a half alone is such a wonderful demonstration of character, and how each of Odo, Worf, Jadzia, and how they're all taking in the music differently, and their reactions to it are so uniquely their own. It's wonderful. It's beautiful to watch. And then you have Vic come over and start talking in his 1960s swing. And I love jargon, I guess. And I love the use of the different language of the time of 1960s Vegas. And I love that the main cast doesn't catch on, you know, the main cast of characters doesn't immediately catch on to that different use of language. You know, he calls somebody a square, and you know what a square is, right?
Yeah, that's great.
It's the side of a cube, right?
One side of a cube.
And I love that these highly intelligent people are still not, you know, immediately well versed in the 20th century United States everything, you know. It's nice to see, and it's believable, and then also the feel of the small town where everybody knows everything about everyone. Jadzia and Bashir are gossiping in the turbo lift, and all of that stuff. I love that. It comes across of a real community. You know, you would get that real sense of community, and everybody knows what everything is going on in everyone else's life, and
scary.
And but also the relationship. It shows relationship and the relationship between Odo and Quark is so beautiful and so beautifully done between Renee and Armin and then and then Kira. Well, I could go on forever about Kira. She's amazing, and I love how Nana is able to diversify between characters. You can tell when Kira is no longer Kira, or you can definitely tell when she is Kira. She's wonderful in switching up her acting and all of that. And I could go on, but there's so much wonderful in this, and it's beautifully written. Thank you, Ira. And beautifully acted by the entire ensemble. So great show. I love it.
We did go on and on about it too before you guys came on. Cirroc and I were just hurling compliments nonstop. It was great.
Yeah.
All right. Tierney C. Dieckmann, aka Borg Queen. Any thoughts on this episode?
Many thoughts. Many thoughts. I'll pull up my notes. Get the good stuff. So I was very happy to rewatch this one. I think I forget about the importance of this episode, really, but it was a good rewatch. It was, especially after all of the hard episodes that we've gone through lately, all the important but harder ones, and I love this episode. But I think I brought it up especially with Pale Moonlight, that one of the reasons we love episodes like that, Far Beyond the Stars, is the intensity. And even though they're sci-fi, there's that reflection of modern realism. We connect to them and their poignancy that relates to everything we know today, et cetera, so forth. But this episode is kind of the opposite of why it's so great and why it's so well done. I mean, when you back up a little and you look at it, it's so multifaceted, interspecies, main character, rom-com, move the series forward, resolve their tension, introduce a big new character, a new revisited, very highly contrasting new set, and do a mid-century modern pseudo musical in Star Trek and make it work. I mean, just out of the blue, considering the previous episodes that we've had, just out of nowhere, and do it well, make it work. And it does, and pretty seamlessly too, which is, when you really think about all of those points, is a ridiculous feat. I mean, Ira, how? Like, unbelievable. I mean, to bring a character from 60s Vegas into a far-flung future space station is ridiculous, and it's perfect. I don't know how it is, but it works so well. And unlike some of the other characters that you see them come in and there's some crazy kind of cross-post genre out of nowhere that you know they're instantly going to be one-off, dropped and discarded at the end of the episode, Vic never came off like that, at least not to me. And I remember my initial nitpicks when it was, binge era time that I restarted all of Star Trek, I remember the things that bugged me when this came about, and that was not one of them. I didn't look at Vic and think, he's gone. This is not a thing that's gonna last. It wasn't, I'm Beverly Crusher and I'm resigning my commission at Starfleet to go be with my grandmother's orgasm ghost. This was somebody it worked. And he was just going to be there. And I mean, a lot of it's going to be because James Darren is awesome. And I think if you look at like a lot of the people that could have been in this role that weren't available, that turned it down, and the kind of serendipitous things that led up to him being put in this as Vic, it just works. And I mean, it probably works partially because a lot of this was his life. And reading some of the stuff in the companion, it's fantastic. But
now, for those of you, sorry, Tierney, but for those of you that missed Grandpa One's reaction when Tierney said orgasm ghost, you really missed out. I was able to catch that. Thank you, Tim. That was
Tim, you gotta stop muting yourself for your laughs.
Yeah.
Well, we would have done the orgasm ghost if TNG hadn't gotten there first. So,
I mean, you did get an extra card. You still could have been something there.
Yeah.
Dr. Mohamed Noor, who's also enjoying quite the laugh here. Your thoughts on the orgasm ghost or this episode?
I'll focus on the episode rather than the orgasm ghost. But thank you. Actually, so I had two things. Actually, Tierney very elegantly said one of the things I thought was very poignant, that it was very impressive that this was a really, really successful rom-com. Basically, you could almost imagine Odo being played by Billy Crystal or Tom Hanks from the time, and Kira being like the Meg Ryan of the time or something like that. And it actually worked. But these are established characters, so that was very impressive to be able to do that successfully. I love that. There was one piece that I've mentioned this one to you before, Ryan, but I don't know if the others have seen. There's an interesting Duke connection here since I work at Duke. I thought that was really cool.
Yes.
So according to IMDb and Memory Alpha, and Ira, you can tell me if this is correct, because I mean, those things are, essentially crowdsourced, so that it may be wrong. The Now Visitor actually picked the song Fever to use. And what it says is that she did this because as a kid, she and her mom would go to see Doris Duke, who was a rich socialite, and she's one of the people who was, the family that endowed the university with which I work. And she would sing that song there, and Nana was very moved by it, and that's why she incorporated it into the show.
That's the story.
Wow,
that's the story. So it's true. That's good, and nice to have confirmation. But that's really cool.
Wow,
yeah, that's cool.
That's a deep cut. Anne Marie, did you love that story or what?
Okay. Well, spoiler alert, I already knew it because I know everything about this
surprise.
episode.
Skip the whole part about Doris Duke actually being a murderer, but we'll set that aside.
Okay. And also, though, I did lie to you. I did buy one other autograph, and it's James Darren on his CD that I got. And Ira did the foreword, and it's so good. It's to the coolest guy in the room. But yeah, I guess it's not showing up that well. But yeah, that's my other autograph.
Love
so
it.
Good. I love him so much.
How do you feel about this episode?
It's just so good. You can't not smile at the end. And, it also has like really poignant parts. Like you can't help but think moments of clarity do come like not all that often. And they are important to listen to. I just love it all. And Quark at the end is just the cutest shot when he smiles at them kissing. I love it so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't cover that moments of clarity thing. That's actually a really important point. Although Ira did mention his moment of clarity when he realized he needed to hurry up and get Kira and Odo together, right?
Yeah, I mean, time was ticking.
Mm-hmm.
We knew there was an end date looming ahead, and it was like, let's try to do everything we've always wanted to do on this show, no matter what it is, and see if we can make it work, Mm-hmm. And this one did. Mm-hmm. Definitely did. It was a nice revisit.
Well, Eve England out in Wales, thank you for always staying up for us. Your thoughts on this fabulous episode?
Yeah, I mean, just echo what everyone else has said. I mean, to me, Vic Fontaine and the club are just one of my favorite things about Deep Space Nine. It's just something so reassuring and comforting. It's the comfort food of Deep Space Nine for me, Vic Fontaine, and all of the episodes in his club. It's just the music, it's the authenticity of how the look and feel of the place. And I just love how I think it's such a good mechanism actually to really develop and show the relationship development between lots of different characters in what seems like a much more natural sort of environment for them to do that. So I feel that, you just get so much more out of the characters and their relationships from their experience and their relationship with Vic. So I just love the dynamic of all of that. I did pick out a few things from the companion, but obviously we've got Ira here anyway, so I'm sure lots of these things have been covered. But two of the things, again, one is just similar, I suppose, to Mohamed's one. There seems to be a Welsh connection to this episode as well. The companion makes reference to the fact that you did consider at some point Tom Jones as the character of Vic. So I don't know if that's correct or not, but I was thinking, that's pretty cool, because I actually saw him in Vegas once. And although I love Tom Jones, I think James Darren is definitely the better Vic. So I'm really glad that did turn out that way, if there were other people being considered.
Yeah. We considered everyone, it seems, at one point or another. Anyone who could carry a tune, we considered. So yes, Tom Jones was bandied about as well.
Wow.
He seemed like an actual get at one point, we thought, but what do we know? It sounded like a sane kind of a move, but I don't think he would have been as open and as ease as Jimmy, because Tom Jones at the time still was selling Tom Jones, and Jimmy hadn't sang in so long that he wasn't selling, James Darren. He was selling Vic Fontaine. That's the difference.
Oh, yeah. That's really cool. Sorry, one other thing just that tickled me when I read the companion. I don't know if you ever said this, Ira, but it says that the sort of origin story for Vic was very much that you wanted a guy like Yoda who'd sort of impart his wisdom to the crew. So because I just love that quote. That just made me chuckle. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was we discussed this in the heart of the discussion earlier today. But yes, I never conceived of Vic at the time as being someone who would carry an episode. He was strictly supposed to be a new set, a new place for the crew to go, maybe, one or two scenes every couple of episodes. He was never going to have a storyline. We never thought of it in that way, but it would just be a way to break some of the tension we thought that would be developing across the series. And then when that all came apart, I'm sure it talks about in the companion, then it just became, middle of season 6, we either do it now or we never do it, and let's do it if we're going to go for it again. We went for it 2 times and failed. The third time is let's go for it big. Let's do a whole episode and let's get Kira and Odo together. So then it became a whole big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Wow.
Thank you.
Great stuff. I always get a little nervous when somebody starts a sentence with, so I read that you said this. Did you actually say? And then we tense up, and then it's like, okay, it's a good, okay.
Well, if it's the DS9 companion, chances are I said it, and everyone said it, because Terry Erdman did his homework very well.
It's good to know. Dr. Susan V. Gruner out in northern Florida. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So good. Any thoughts on this episode?
The glossary on the cruise. I'm still waiting for details on that.
Well, Ira's tired of hearing details about that because we can't stop talking about it.
He'll talk your ear off if you let him.
I'll tell you what we need.
It's like you've been there. They'll talk to you for 8 days if you want, or 10 days, however long it was. So, yeah.
We need the real Ira on the next cruise.
the next cruise, right?
You'll be there.
I love this episode. I love everything about it. All the little details. I don't know if you did this deliberately, but I thought all the one-liners were so perfect for a Vegas-centric show. I'm happy that Odo and Kira got together, but I was happier to watch Odo and Avery singing a song together.
Yes.
That was awesome. I have a question about the band. Did you actually record that? Were they actually playing live, or was it lip singing? Or I'm curious.
I think for the most part it was lip synced, and they had recorded it earlier. But those guys were really cool. I really liked them. It was really fun seeing them when I watched the show again yesterday. I was wondering, gee, I hope these guys are still around. You know, I hope they're still with us. But yeah, they, you know, the old joke is, you know, what if you're watching a comedian, you know, in Vegas, look at the band to see if they're laughing, and then you'll know whether he's good or not. And I remember, you know, watching those guys, those musicians getting into it. You know, I don't know what the hell they thought they were getting into at first, you know, a Star Trek episode. I don't know what the hell they conceived of, but you could tell they were definitely kind of like digging it. They definitely were digging Jimmy and the attempt to be within reason as close to a realistic, you know, mid 50s or late 50s, early 60s, you know, Vegas lounge, you know, not the big room, the lounge. And yeah, so I like those guys a lot.
Well, I loved it. And I love the whole thing. Who came up with the Nanook of the North? I love that.
Well,
I had to look up Nanook because I wasn't exactly sure what it was.
I read that book.
Oh, really?
But, I mean, the set decor, the clothes, every little detail, every line, it was absolutely perfect. And I went in and I 10'd it.
Yes, on IMDb, she means.
Yep.
That's that was started by Anne Marie. She tends everything.
Yeah.
Everything D9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By the way, Sue is the first person on our show whose hair matches Ira's goatee.
You can't really.
Oh, we can see it. There it is. Look at how great that is. Okay. On a post. So good to see you. How are you? Have you seen this episode recently? And if so, what'd you think?
I did see it a few weeks ago. I love this episode. I know everybody's been pretty, you know, serious in their critiques on everything artistic about it, but I'm just going to say I love the fact that it's the closest we ever get to Star Trek the musical.
Yeah.
Which is both of my loves. I really, really enjoyed it. I love, just like a good musical, how it ties the serious with the comic relief and commenting on life and the importance of life. I love Vic as a character, how he becomes like a sounding board to other characters where, like, you know, if Miles can't necessarily talk to Bashir, but he can talk to Vic, or like all the characters sort of find that time eventually throughout the series to use Vic as a sounding board where traditionally you would assume they would go to one of their friends, but they can't type thing. So I think he's a wonderful addition. I loved seeing everybody sing. I just remember when I watched it a couple years ago, or just a couple of weeks ago, really, really sad that I never got to see Nana in Chicago. Like, you could just see her performance in that.
Oh, did we lose her?
Oh, no. Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
Oh.
Well, she'll be back in a second. Until then, up next, Ryan Galloway in jolly old Canada. I think that jolly is supposed to be England, but how you doing, Ryan? Have you seen the episode recently, by the way?
I saw it a few days ago, just to rewatch it, And when the episode first aired, I was only 12 years old in grade 7. So I was starting to get introduced into the trumpet and jazz music and everything. And that's how I learned lots of the jazz music was right from Star Trek.
That's
really?
Good.
Yeah. So my parents asked me where I heard these songs before, and I said Star Trek, and they were shocked, which was cool.
Wow.
And I just loved how Odo and Kira got together, and just the whole introducing Vegas into Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's so cool.
Which was good. Yeah. And just just loved DS9 in general and everything.
I met, nothing makes me feel better than to hear someone say, I got into music because of Vic Fontaine. I got into jazz and the Great American Songbook. Literally, I'm not kidding. Nothing makes me happier than to hear that. When we were doing the dinners for the people who contributed to the documentary, I met this gentleman who had just a fabulous story. He had never heard any of those songs until he saw the episodes, and then he became so obsessed. And this was a normal guy. His wife was with him. He wasn't, but he became so obsessed that he has become like world's greatest authorities on the music of Sammy Davis Jr. Seriously, he's done so much research that he's compiled the most complete listing of every song Sammy Davis recorded from the early days when he was a teenager and with his uncle's trio, and all because of His Way, all because of these episodes. And it's fantastic. It was just he loves the music, and the guy, it's so weird, not weird at all actually, but he went from Vic Fontaine, yes Sinatra, yes Dean, but he really went to Sammy Davis Jr., and he just became this obsessive collector and librarian, of Sammy Davis Jr. So I thought that was wonderful.
Cool.
So,
wow. Wow, that's so you're saying there was a Star Trek fan? Sorry, you're saying there's a Star Trek fan that was obsessive? Huh.
I thought you were going to say, you mean there was a Star Trek fan who was married. But yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying, Cirroc?
No, I was saying Sammy Davis Jr. also played that role, the Vic Fontaine role.
Yeah.
Obviously, because he's got that whole experience, but I don't think you can really top what James Darren brought to the table. It was pretty much as good as it was. And having spent some time with him at conventions, he is literally just that cool in real life. He's dressed to a T. He's got his shades on, very lightly colored shades. His collar is perfectly starched, and his, everything about him is like, you look at him, you're like, this guy is a star, and he's just naturally a good guy. He has that open personality, that friendly personality, where you feel like you can talk to him about anything. Say, hey, James, this or that. He's just that cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one more Jimmy Darren story that another out to dinner Jimmy Darren story. We're out to dinner one night and at this Italian restaurant, and this guy comes up to the table, this middle-aged guy, but like a starker, as they say, he's a guy, he talks like this, and he's definitely a guy. And he comes very nice, but, and he's leaning over to Jimmy, and he's talking, whispering to Jimmy. And Jimmy was so happy to see him, like he hadn't seen him in a long, long time. And all of a sudden, they get up, and Jimmy says, I'll be right back. And he exits the restaurant with the guy. Okay. So Evie goes, oh, he'll be back. Whatever the guy's name was, let's say Vinny. He looked like a Vinny. Vinny wanted to show him his car. He's very happy about his car. And we thought, oh, okay. Must be some car. She goes, well, you don't understand. He just got out. He just got out. Yeah, he had been away for quite a number of years, and he just got out. And he's so proud that he owns a car that he wanted to show Jimmy the car. And it's like, okay, great. But Jimmy knows a lot of people. That's all I will say. He knows a lot of people. Yeah.
All walks of life.
Walks of life. Yeah, exactly.
He's like, hey, let me show you the trunk of my car, Pally.
Yeah.
Look deep in there. Check it out.
Yeah, you could fit like 2 bodies in there.
Maybe. I don't know. I wasn't out there with him.
Well, there's somebody here that didn't approve of your joke, Cirroc, and it was TJ shaking his head.
Oh.
What are your thoughts, TJ?
Nice call out. It wasn't the disapproval shake. It was just like, oh my goodness. But anywho, I really appreciated this episode. And since I was playing catch up, I also had just watched In the Pale Moonlight, and so it really kind of helped me get into the mindset of where the crew is. They're in the middle of this war. It's not going great. Times are kind of rough. They've been looking at these casualty lists and all of that jazz, and they bring in this Vic Fontaine deal that's like a morale booster. Dr. Bashir has got it. At this point, the station doesn't have a counselor that we've ever seen, but I think Vic comes about as close as she can to that. And so, kind of good to see, that dynamic introduced to the crew while they're going through this rough patch of Federation history. So I thought the introduction was pretty cool. I think, somebody was mentioning he's calling them Clydes and squares and all of those things, and they don't have a clue. And I thought that was funny to watch. Hear these characters that we love and think they're so cool, but they're not like our time era cool. They're like, but I also enjoyed, watching kind of this exploration of Odo's shyness and how, he has these feelings, but he doesn't really want everybody to see him. And he's tried confiding in, of all people, Quark. He's tried to get advice from Dr. Bashir, but it's Vic Fontaine is the one that breaks him open. And really lets us, see Odo shine through in Renee's performance. And so, I appreciated being able to watch that again. And as I was watching, when the Lola character came out, I was thinking about Cirroc. Cirroc probably caught the fever.
Yeah, I thought of him too.
We love the Doctor hologram, but move aside and let Vic have the mobile transmitter, because it's probably one of the best holos out there.
Wow, good. Yeah, I think we all thought of Cirroc when hologram Kira. All right.
Are you sure you don't want her, Odo? I'll take her.
To lunch.
To lunch.
Grandpa One, welcome back, my friend. Have you enjoyed this episode recently?
Yes. I actually rewatch it every now and then just because that's my favorite type of music. If you ask my kids and my wife, that's Rat Pack music is always playing in my car. And, I think it was Eve that brought up that they were looking at different people, and I'd heard Frank Sinatra Jr. was one of them that they were looking at. But honestly, I cannot think of anybody else that could have played it like it was.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Darren just nailed it. And, there's a reason why eventually he's, the one of my favorite episodes, Under a Paper Moon. But no, I just, I really enjoyed the whole concept of the 60s casino. It was an escapism for the crew. And like you said, they didn't have a counselor. So Vic Fontaine was the closest thing they had to a counselor on the ship. And obviously Bashir was obsessed with them. But overall, it just, it was one of my favorite episodes, not only because I love the music, but I thought it was well written. The whole fever, though, that was a great scene. But yeah, so, that's my take on it. So.
By the way, everybody, Grandpa One here, that is his code name in the military, or that's his nickname. And I'm really looking forward to when we review Paper Moon, because I'm sure it'll have special meaning, as you mentioned, Tim. Thank you for your service, and I'm looking forward to that one. I can't wait. Goldu Scott, oh my goodness.
Man,
you always have so much cool stuff in your background there, but what are your thoughts on this episode?
How do I follow up what everybody said, man? This is on point tonight. In this rewatch, I really felt like jazz in particular is the perfect music to embody just the movement of DS9.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that's why it was so natural when they popped in there. Had it been, like a punk band or something like that, and Vic is just, it wouldn't have worked. But I thought that was very cool, and that just similarities of how everybody involved in the show makes it look so effortless, and jazz is incredibly difficult to play. So similarity with that, and incredibly difficult to play. Yeah, so I really love how, because music and sci-fi are my two favorite things, and I love it when the stuff comes together like that. And it was also gets better with every listen, just like these episodes get better with every watch. So.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Oh my goodness. On a post, we lost you when you were just saying great things about Nana. Can we come back to you now and finish that thought?
Hung up. It hung up the Zoom for some reason. It was a scam too. It was one of those scams.
Would you like to extend your warranty on your vehicle?
Like, no, I'm talking about Deep Space Nine, man.
Stop. No.
Yeah, I really wish I had gotten a chance to see her in Chicago. I'm sure they all loved that with Avery singing and Armin and Nana and just everybody's talent on that show.
Anna, real quick, I think you might be covering up your mic. You got a little quieter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
Highlighting, aspects of all of the actors that we don't get to see on the show normally. And it looked like they were having so much fun doing it. And I love the fact that they would go to VIX and watch all these things the way we watch, like classical movies and TCM and stuff. So I think it's an important but also very fun episode, and I love it.
Totally. Well, Cirroc, this is it. This has been an awesome one. Do you have any final thoughts to close the chapter on His Way?
The final thoughts are basically, it was a fun episode, and it's one of those episodes where you're smiling the whole time. That's what I really enjoyed about it. It wasn't heavy. It was just very light and easy to on the palate. But I wanted to say there were a couple of moments that I thought were just hilarious. One was when Vic calls them. He says, "You guys look like a trapeze act." Show everybody. They're all looking, and they're like, "What do you mean?" And as I was looking at them, I was thinking, "Yeah, they kind of do look like some circus player or some kind of trapeze, act." So I was laughing at just that still of all of them kind of looking at him like, "What are you talking about?" Great moment. And the other great moment I thought was very special, and it's so subtle, but when Odo says to Kira, well, the only thing left to do now is dance. And he picks her up and they start to go into that dance. And I love how Kira says, well, I'm not sure, I don't know how to, do this dance. And that just was like one little kind of reference to the fact that, yes, these are the dances of our time, and 500 years from now or so, people wouldn't know these kinds of dances. It's a very small reference, but she played it so well. She played like the awkward, like, what do I do? Looking at his feet kind of thing.
I also wanted to mention
that
was one of my favorite lines was Odo's response to that. He says, just stay close. And I was like, oh, that is good. That's smooth. I love it. Yeah.
So cute.
Yeah.
So I love those moments right there. We're amongst all the other moments, but those were just some very subtle and special moments that I think this episode was layered with. And thank you to Ira and Hans for giving us some great dialogue, giving us some great scenes, and setting them up in such a clever way, because we've been waiting for them to get together. We knew it was going to happen eventually. We just didn't know how. And you kind of completely take it from left field and surprise us with this whole new introduction, this whole thing, this whole musical. And it's like, whoa, okay, that's how it was going to happen. So thank you for that surprise too, Ira, for keeping us kind of guessing and not knowing what's going to come next.
Yeah,
sure. I mean, we, like I said, we never thought of Vic being that involved with an episode or that involved with Kira and Odo, in season 4 when he came up originally, season 5 when we tried to do it again, and it wasn't until season 6 when it was like we went for the whole enchilada. So it was meant to be. I mean, in its own way, it was meant to be, because usually if an idea isn't working after two swings, you just go okay, forget about it. But it was just like, we're going to do every goddamn stupid thing we ever thought of in this series, but we still have the time. And so we went for it, and we lucked out. We lucked out, because if I hadn't run into Jimmy, the way I did at a one of those autograph shows, I don't know if I would have thought of Jimmy Darren, or Jimmy Darren's name would have ever come up, because he wasn't acting. So it was just meant to be. The whole thing just kind of fell together in like I said, show me the magic. There's the magic. So
perfection. Wow. Well, everybody, years from now, we are never going to stop looking back at how fortunate we were to have Ira Steven Behr tell us all these awesome stories multiple times on our show. So as everybody said before,
dead? When you're looking back,
I didn't say many decades from now. You're going to outlive all of us.
It was like, well, once he's gone, we'll still have this to look back upon.
We'll always have this.
I'm going to edit this part out right here. No, you're going to outlive all of us, Ira. That's for sure.
I don't care about all of us. I'm just going to concentrate on you now.
Ira, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Every time you come on, I see that what I think is from Swan Lake in the background. Is that what it is?
Well, my wife was a ballerina back in the day, and then she was a choreographer, and we have hundreds of tutus down in the basement in the workout room from different shows that she did. And how that one got hung up here, I am not sure, but it's been for a long time. I think we had a child visiting us, one of our friends' kids, and she was bringing out all these tutus to show her, and that one just kind of got hung up, and now it's become part of the furniture. So that's the answer. You asked that.
That's the answer.
All right. Well, thank you, Ira. This has been the best as always. And thank you to
Thanks
Sue.
to all of you.
Thank you to Sue, Melissa, Tierney, Mohamed, Eve, Grandpa One, aka Tim, but mostly Grandpa One, Goldu Scott, Anne Marie, Homer Freezy, Anna Post, Ryan Galloway, TJ Jackson-Bey. For Cirroc, Lofton, myself, and the greatest human ever, Aaron Eisenberg. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Until then, always remember the seventh rule.